Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. We are about to embark on one of the wildest cases I have ever seen. The question that is about to go to a Colorado jury is, did James Craig poison his wife of 23 years, the mother of their 6 children? That's the question that prosecutors are going to be putting to a jury in Centennial, Colorado. Prosecutors say that this was not just a sudden snap. It wasn't a one-time mistake. They say that James Craig, a well-respected dentist and an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a father of 6, methodically planned and carried out the murder of his wife, Angela. And they say he didn't try just once. According to the state, James Craig bought not one and not 2, but 3 different poisons in repeated efforts to kill his wife. He finally succeeded on March 18th, 2023, when Angela was declared brain dead, and finally the family was forced to take her off life support. But how could that be? How could a trusted professional who spent his life fixing teeth and smiles be capable of poisoning the mother of his children, his own children? The motive is pretty murky. Craig apparently was having financial troubles, but there's not any mention of life insurance in the arrest warrant, which is often coupled with somebody killing their spouse when they're having financial trouble. And there's no obvious financial windfall to him from her death. And in fact, when you think about it, with 6 children and no one to care for them, he probably would be worse off financially if something happened to his wife. So, and he had met another woman, an orthodontist he connected with at a dental conference, but they had only known each other for a total of 3 weeks before Angela before the poisoning. And in fact, Craig ordered his first poison from Amazon just 2 days after they first met. So was this a crime of passion? Was it midlife unraveling? Was it a plan, cold, calculated? Tonight, we're going to go straight into the arrest warrant. We're going to break down exactly what the state says James Craig did. And we're going to do it step by step. We're going to start asking the questions. What is the state going to argue, and what will James Craig's defense be? So let's dive into, without question, the most detailed and most bizarre affidavit I think I've read. So special shout out to the first 5 in tonight's chat: Carolyn Knight, Camilla Juliana, Sweetie, DJ, and Just a Girl. All right, so let's put up on the screen this right here, and you saw it also in the thumbnail. This is a picture of James Craig, and this is the arrest warrant for him. Let me rework the, okay. All right, so what's he charged with? First of all, we can see right from here, first-degree murder after deliberation. Now, if you watched my last video on this, which was Wednesday, what you also saw is that he now has a host of additional charges, 5 new charges. And they include tampering with evidence. They include murder for hire of possibly as many as 4 people, not including his wife. So there's a lot more to this now. This is all related to the issues around the death of Angela Craig, his wife. And it's signed, I wanted to go ahead and mention this, it's signed by a detective with the Aurora Police Department. That's almost certainly, well, in fact, it is the same detective he is charged with trying to hire someone to kill. When he was already in jail, he's sitting there in jail, and he's trying to hire prisoners to arrange for the murder of this lead detective with the Aurora Police Department. Okay, so let's head in, and I'm telling you, this one is wild, as in buckle your seatbelts. You don't want to miss this. It's hard to even explain. So let's start off at the beginning. On March 15th, 2023, at approximately 11:08 a.m., victim Angela Craig presented herself to University Hospital because she had a severe headache and was experiencing dizziness. Angela was accompanied by her brother, and there are lots of redactions in here, and later met by her husband, James Craig. At approximately 2 p.m., Angela experienced a seizure and began to rapidly decline medically. Eventually, she was placed on life support in the intensive care unit. Hospital medical personnel could not find a known medical condition that would have caused Angela's rapid medical decline. Your affiant, that means the person signing this affidavit, was told James was a dentist who worked at the Summerbrook Dental Group. James was business partners with somebody, also a dentist. Ryan and his wife, somebody, date of birth, something, are friends with James and Angela. Now, the reason those people are so important, I believe and I believe this based on what I read in some of the accounts of hearings, which are not, by the way, being televised, but I believe that they may be some of the people that he attempted to execute in the murder for hire plot that he's accused of. I just can't know that for sure, but I think this business partner and wife may have been included in that. So as you see, we're already seeing from the get-go, this is talking about the last stage. This is not the first time that Angela was hospitalized with poisoning. Although it wasn't just diagnosed the first 2 times. To be honest, it wasn't diagnosed the third time. It was the autopsy that found poisons in her system. So let's keep reading. On March 15, 2023, James communicated with somebody via text message from his cell phone and informed somebody that Angela had been admitted to University Hospital and her condition was grave. Somebody and they both responded to University Hospital. At the hospital, somebody spoke with one of the attending nurses regarding his suspicion that Angela was the possible victim of poisoning. Somebody explained to the nurse that James recently ordered potassium cyanide for their dental practice, adding that there was no medical reason or purpose to order potassium cyanide for a dental practice. As a mandatory reporter, the nurse called the police and an investigation ensued. The major crime homicide unit was contacted and took over the investigation. So what I find absolutely fascinating about this, you will see it all the way through. It sounds like his partner is the one who called and said, we think that there might be poisoning going on. All that's happened so far is there's been one call to this partner that we know about saying she's in the hospital, and he's already suspicious. That's saying something. We'll watch this as we go through, but that's kind of remarkable. She hasn't died, but the partner, the business friend, is saying, I think there ought to be, I think people need to know what may be happening. And you can certainly understand why, because if medical personnel have an idea of what's wrong with her, maybe they have a shot of fixing it. Maybe they can heal her. But as it turns out, that wasn't possible. On March 16, 2023, in the early morning hours, your affiant spoke with somebody at the Aurora Police Department headquarters, where they had volunteered to talk with your affiant. Somebody began by saying he and James have been business partners since August of 2022, when Ryan acquired James's dental practice, which had been struggling financially. Somebody stated, although he recently took over James's dental practice, they have known each other for over 20 years and went to dental school together, making it even more remarkable that this partner steps up immediately and says, hey, you know what? I think there may be poisoning going on. That's extraordinary. Somebody described James as a risk taker and found out he had filed for bankruptcy in 2021 and was on the verge of bankruptcy again. Somebody also stated that in January, James confided in someone telling him that he and Angela were having marital problems. So now we've got a possible financial motive, but not really any clear reason why James Craig would be helped if he managed to kill his wife. There's not the usual life insurance allegations, but we do also see specifically that there are marital problems, that James Craig reported that to at least one person. On March 15, 2023, office manager, somebody, let me get rid of that, contacted someone by phone as he was driving to University Hospital to be with James. He was contacted by another office manager, and we're just going to have to kind of roll with the fact that there are a lot of redactions. I think you can pretty much tell what's being said without worrying about it. That on March 6, 2023, the day Angela first became sick and went to Parker Adventist, she was working late at the dental office. Somebody said James returned to the office after hours. So they're connecting it, in other words, time-wise. They're saying that on the very day that Angela first got sick, we're seeing suspicious behavior by James Craig, the defendant in the case. Somebody observed James at an exam room computer with the lights off, doing something personal laptop he regularly took to and from the office. Somebody said approximately 30 minutes after James left the dental office, he texted someone telling her that he would be receiving a personal package and told her not to open it. Somebody stated that a package arrived for James on Monday, March 8, 2023. Somebody found that the package box had been opened. Someone said she found out that another employee had opened the package, forgetting that James was getting a package. She looked inside the package. Inside the package, she said she saw a biohazard sticker and what said potassium cyanide on a circular canister. Somebody realized that was a package for James. Somebody sealed the package back up and gave it to James. And you're going to see later in just a minute from what he says to police, he thinks no one has looked in this package. He is real confident that no one has actually peered into this package and is following what he's done. Somebody said she later Googled what potassium cyanide was used for and saw that Angela had the same symptoms. Somebody called someone when she heard Angela was back in the hospital on March 15, 2023, and told her about the contents of the package. So you just think about the things that came together to make all of this information available to the police. Somebody was working late. When he came back to the office, nobody should have been there, right? He's after hours. And they noticed that he went to a room, not his own, and got on the computer. And that was odd to them. And they noticed it because they're working late and they wouldn't normally be there, but they're there to see it. And then someone accidentally opens the package that he's supposed to receive. They say accidentally. I don't know. Anyway, they say accidentally. They didn't intend to. It's just that the message didn't filter through, that he wanted this to be confidential. But remembering that confidential and the timing and how strange this was, that she goes and researches what it is and discovers this is not something ordinary. This is no pair of shoes from Amazon. This is poison that he's actually ordered. And that, of course, sets off numerous alarm bells. Somebody arrived at University Hospital, I think we're back to the partner, in separate vehicles. I think the partner and his wife both go to the hospital. They're friends with the Craigs and also have business dealings with them. The two men do. But entered the hospital together. Upon arriving, they spoke briefly to James, but he received a phone call from a doctor, so he stepped away. While James was on the phone, a nurse came out to speak with them. Somebody stated while James was on the phone, he pulled the nurse away and told the nurse about his concerns that Angela may have been poisoned with potassium cyanide. While at the hospital, somebody observed James meeting with doctors about Angela's prognosis. Somebody observed James crying after the meeting. Somebody then left the hospital and returned to somebody's vehicle. While in somebody's vehicle, somebody received a call from James's personal cell phone. Somebody's phone connected to somebody's vehicle Bluetooth so that both of them, partner and wife is what I think it means, could have a conversation. James told this partner he had heard some very disturbing information and then asked partner if he had said anything to the hospital staff. Partner admitted that he talked to the hospital staff about this incident. somebody advised that he was aware of the package that James had ordered. James replied that the package was a ring for Angela and that he wanted to surprise her. Isn't that unbelievable? It was a ring. Oh, it was a present, not poison, but a lovely gift, something that she would just love. So kind of like date night with Brooks Houck, I guess, for those of you who followed the Brooks Houck trial with us. He countered by telling James he knew it was not a ring. James claimed the package was never opened, so partner couldn't know what was in it. See how sure he is? He's convinced nobody's going to know. He told people in the office not to open it. They won't have opened it, so he can get away with telling everybody that this is a ring. I have forgotten to ask this. Would you mind hitting the like button? That'll help more people join us for what I think is one of the wildest cases I've ever seen. This is absolutely nuts. And I think it deserves a lot of eyeballs. I think a lot of people need to be looking at this case and considering all of the many, many ramifications of this. We're just scratching the surface tonight. We are only dealing with the death of Angela Craig. Is that important? Yeah, it's what started all of this, but there is a lot more that goes on with this. All right. So James Craig, just super sure, absolutely nobody could possibly have know what's inside this package. So he says, oh yeah, it's a ring. And then the partner's like, no, actually it's wrong. You think that no one opened it, but just so you know, somebody asked James why he would buy potassium cyanide. James eventually recanted and admitted the package contained potassium cyanide, which they knew, but claimed that Angela asked him to order it. James claimed that Angela couldn't order the potassium cyanide because she didn't have the proper credentials. James told partner he ordered the potassium cyanide, but he didn't think she would actually take it. James described the situation as being similar to a game of chicken. At that point, partner told James to stop talking and get a lawyer, which was really good advice, which he would have been well to heed. How many words had he said up until then? Prior to any of those words having come out of his mouth, because wow. So what he's telling his business partner is, oh, this is a ring, it's a present, she's going to be so excited and happy. And now he has a brand new story. And you can see why this witness is so critically important. And the brand new story is, oh yeah, this was all just kind of a game. And for those of you maybe who not native English speakers, you may, what, the game of chicken, what is that? That's where you try something very daring and you see who chickens out first, who is the first person to get scared and say, no, I'm out. I'm not really going to do that. So he's saying, yeah, it was just like a game of chicken. I never thought she'd actually take it. Just like as a game, I would order poisons and see if she would take them. And then turns out, she did, but who would have guessed that? I just ordered the poisons as like part of this game. So that is the story he told the partner. And the partner's response is not to believe it. Anyway, the partner's response is, time to get a lawyer. This is really bothering me. All right, Michael, great to have you back. We are glad to have you in the chat. Thank you very much. And Michael has been a member for 15 months, which is pretty much the whole amount of time we have had members. So thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. Michael is into colors. And yes, I am wearing blue. Thank you very much for your super chat. I appreciate that. All right, so let's keep reading because there is a lot to read here. Your affiant, remember that's the lead detective, and Detective Graw then interviewed Michelle. Got to be the wife of the partner. It's not very well redacted. This is provided by the court, so this is actually what was filed. Who provided a similar account of events as her husband. Unknown. I don't know. What can I say? This is the public record. Somebody told your affiant that Angela had first become sick on March 6, 2023. Angela went to Parker Adventist Hospital and was released the same day. Angela reported she was dizzy and weak. Somebody stated Angela fell ill again and returned to Parker Adventist Hospital on March 9th, 2023. Angela was admitted on March 9th and released on March 14th. Medical personnel were unable to determine what was causing Angela to have her symptoms. Somebody stated that the next day, March 15th, at approximately 11 a.m., Angela was brought to University Hospital by her brother. Lots of interesting stuff in that. First of all, we learned that there had been, it wasn't just one hospitalization. This is the third one for Angela Craig. Doctors find this utterly mysterious. What is happening? The second time they admitted her for a substantial number of days, 5 days, because they were concerned, but they couldn't figure it out. What was the problem? Why was she so ill? And then I also find it very interesting that on her last hospitalization, instead of having her husband take her to the hospital, she has her brother do that. And there may be a reason for that, which we are going to read about in just a minute. Now, what I've done is, it's so huge, I'm trying to divide it up into segments so we can get part of the story tonight, part of the story another night, but kind of compact so we can understand the story the best. So what I've done is focus on the story around what the prosecution says happened to Angela and the poisoning issues. And included in that is how James Craig had access to poisons, because that's part of the state's case. All right, so let's go to next page for this. They have a ton of text messages. We'll get into those another night. Okay. Aurora Police Department Major Crimes Homicide Detective Chamberlain responded to University Hospital on March 16, 2023 at approximately 12:30 a.m. to speak with attending hospital staff. Detective Chamberlain learned that Angela arrived at University Hospital at approximately 11 a.m. At approximately 2 p.m., Angela began suffering from a serious seizure, and doctors struggled to intubate her. So basically, see what's happening here. Angela shows up at the hospital emergency room, and pretty much with her, like barely separated in time, comes this detective. Same day. I mean, this is how on top of it the friends were in considering whether or not this was maybe poisoning. They were trying to get help for her, but it was not fast enough. So and I don't say that in any way to say that they anything. They did absolutely everything they could. It's just that it was too late. That would maybe be a better way to put it, because of what apparently she had ingested, what the autopsy report would show she had ingested. So at approximately 2 p.m., Angela began suffering from a serious seizure, and doctors struggled to intubate her. Angela suffered from a lack of oxygen, had no pupil reaction, and began to have increased intracranial pressure, which caused decreased perfusion pressure, and was sent to the intensive care unit. Detective Chamberlain learned that Angela was still on life support, had no brain activity, and her prognosis was poor, that she may not make it through the evening. And remember, this is a young woman. I think they said she was 43 with 6 kids at home, 6 kids at home. Somebody was contacted and asked if she would respond to the Aurora Police Department to speak with detectives. In summary, this person stated she had been the office manager for the dentist's office for approximately 6 months and worked for James at Summerbrook Dental. Although somebody is also a dentist, he does not work at that dental clinic, but is a partner in the business. Somebody knew that on March 6, 2023, James and his wife, Angela, worked out in the morning. Before the workout, James made Angela a protein shake or pre-workout shake in which James gave her extra protein. In other words, it would be some kind of powder he put in. I don't know what potassium cyanide comes in. Need to look that up. Because she was feeling sluggish. After the workout, Angela became faint and dizzy, and ultimately James took Angela to the hospital. Somebody also started to notice odd or strange things around the office on March 6th. This is so March 6th is the first time Angela gets sick. And so on that same day, towards the end of the day, she found James in the dentist's office in a back medical area, which she referred to as exam room 9. She thought this was strange because James had his computer in his office and his wife had just been discharged from the hospital. And notice the drumbeat being built up by the detectives. They're saying, okay, he tries and he fails. So he tries something else and he fails. So finally he tries the thing that ultimately works. So that's the drumbeat. When we put it all together in an outline, you're going to see how this works even better, I think. Somebody confirmed it was not common for James to use a computer in the exam room, specifically number 9, because he had his own computer in the office and a laptop that he took home with him. Somebody left a short time later and James remained in the office. Approximately 30 minutes later, James sent her a text message saying he had a personal package coming to the office. Let her know when it came. During this time frame, Angela ill and was taken to the hospital where she was constantly throwing up. It was unclear what her diagnosis was, and James had said Angela's pressure was low. So this whole story about exam room 9, this is all after Angela's admitted that the first time, or she goes to the hospital the first time, but she's fairly quickly discharged. So that very night, and I don't know timing wise, is she still there or is she about to come home? But the prosecution says James Craig is already researching the next poison. And that's what they're going to argue. All right. During Angela's time in the hospital, James had conversations with someone where he told her he didn't think his wife was going to make it. In the same conversation, James asked about business in the office. Somebody found it strange James was concerned about his dental practice when his wife was in dire medical condition. Now, I think I mentioned this when we covered this a year or so ago. Personally, I don't find that all that strange. I know that just from my experience with a loved one who's very ill, you just worry about a lot of things. And sometimes your worry gets displaced onto like, oh, how am I going to afford this? How am I ever going to make it? And, how will I pay for this medical care that he needs? So that one fact isn't enough for me, but there are obviously many, many, many more facts throughout this. All right. Let's see. Where were we? On March 13th, 2023, the office attendants opened a package that came into the office. This package was addressed directly to James. She knew this to be the personal package James had been asking about. This attendant had already opened the package. So somebody took the package from the office attendant, which she intended to put in James's office. As somebody repackaged the box, she noticed a packing slip that read potassium cyanide. And just think, if that little detail had been missed. Just imagine, the package comes in, no one opens it, no one knows. Somebody described the package as a foil square with no other markings on it. Somebody said the package had a biohazard or warning, but she couldn't remember what it was. Somebody resealed the box and hand-delivered the package to James. Somebody later saw James walking down the hall of the office with a cylindrically shaped canister wrapped in brown paper or construction paper with a metal lid. Somebody was unsure what this cylindrical canister was, but stated in the 6 months she had been at the dental office, she had not seen a similar canister. Somebody had never seen potassium cyanide delivered to the office and was unsure what it was for. So she performed a Google search, and in the search noted the side effects of ingesting potassium cyanide and matched the same symptoms Angela had been exhibiting over the last week, including nausea, vomiting, and low blood pressure. Somebody said James told her when Angela was discharged on March 14, 2023, she made accusations that James had poisoned her. So that's, I think, critically important in the timeline. And remember, I told you her brother, when she was discharged on March 14th and she went back on the 15th, it wasn't James taking her to the hospital. It was her brother taking her to the hospital. And so someone in his office is saying, Angela is accusing James of poisoning her. She is already suspicious. Somebody said James told her when Angela was discharged March 14th, she made accusations James had poisoned her. Angela said something to James along the lines of, there are poisons they don't test for. Somebody heard from James that Angela was sent home on oxygen and they didn't know what was wrong with her. Can you imagine how incredibly upsetting this is for everyone in the office? Because this woman is sitting there with this knowledge that she's seen this potassium cyanide and she's Googled it and it could cause these symptoms. And now there's this rumor that Angela believes she's being poisoned, and it's the boss, but could the boss be poisoning his wife? And what do you do with that? And now, and it's going to get even worse. But obviously, this is such a strange event. And when you learn that Angela is worried about this, that Angela is maybe accusing him, James said that. Why? Why did James say that? Someone in the office. But anyway, apparently he did. And Angela says this. And so she's thinking about that. She's wondering about this. And yet, did she drink a shake he made her that very morning? Again, she's been discharged from the hospital and take the shake again. It's like one of those scenes from a horror movie where you're like, no, don't go into the basement. And of course, they always go into the basement. But, you just want to you just want to say, don't take anything from him. Don't take the shade. It's just so distressing to kind of watch the progression of this and to see that all the people around him, they feel like they had to have felt like they were like in swimming through thick water, trying to get there in time. And it's just a nightmare. And obviously, let me be very, very clear on this. None of this has been proven in a court of law. This is an affidavit filed by the lead detective in the case. She worked for the Aurora Police Department, but this is not actual evidence presented in a court. All of that is going to come over the next few weeks. And we are going to be asking questions through here. What is James's defense going to be? Obviously, he will portray himself as what most people thought he was up until now anyway, that he was a loving father, a hard worker, dentist, took care of the family, took care of the 6 kids, took care of his wife, took her to the hospital over and over again, helped her, was the kind of sweet guy who would even make a smoothie for her. He's going to have an explanation for each of the things that he ordered. At least I assume that he's going to have an explanation. We've heard one of them already, that it was a chicken. I don't think that's going to be what gets presented at trial. My guess would be that they're going to do something different from that. So, all right, let's keep reading. Where were we exactly? Let's see. Are we back in the hospital with this? Yeah, I think we were. March 15th, somebody learned that Angela was back in the hospital with the same symptoms, although it sounds like it may be a different poison this time. Based on what we're going to hear later. At least that's what law enforcement is going to allege at this trial. Somebody said at one point she called her manager, Jacqueline, who also thought James might be responsible for Angela's sickness. Somebody then shared the information she had about finding the potassium cyanide invoice. Somebody stated she knew that James and Angela were having marital problems. So here's the second person to know that, because James had recently mentioned he had told Angela that he wanted a divorce. Somebody said James had been distant from time to time at work and would leave sometimes at lunch because he and Angela were having fights. Somebody said she had not seen the package since the day she gave it to James, and said the trash was collected by the trash company daily. One of the strangest things to me about this is you are waiting for the person who knows them to say, oh, no, it could not possibly be James. Such a great guy, really good father. Absolutely not. There's no way that loving husband, this couldn't possibly be. And instead, you see person after person who works with him going, might be. And to me, that's really strange. I don't know if that was a complete break with what they had thought of him up until that moment, or whether there had been some kind of sign to them earlier that something was amiss. I don't know, but none of them seemed to be fighting the idea that he may have done something improper here. And that's what they are now, as you're going to see, going to tell the police. All right, so let's go into, yeah, we've still got plenty of time. Okay, so we're going to go down here and we're going to dive into how exactly the police say that James Craig got his hands on poison. And you will be stunned to learn that item number one, just from Amazon. But here we go. Let's go ahead and start at what they did. What they did in terms of the affidavit, what they claim. Within the contents of the emails, there's an order on March 9th, 2023. And so what they say is first that he ordered arsenic straight from Amazon, and then he ordered another one, which was captured by FedEx, like, oh, wait, we don't ship poisons. And so they pulled that and he never got that one. What we're going to go through here is the third poison. So by now, Angela is hospitalized for the second time. She went the first time, came home, same day. She then went again on the 9th. She's going to be in the hospital through the 14th, but she's going to come home again at the end of that. But according to this, on the 9th, James Craig is going to try to order another poison, this one from Midland Scientific. The item purchased was a Sigma something something. After the item was purchased, Midland Scientific employee Cassie Rodriguez contacted James about some follow-up needs for the product. You'll be pleased to know they apparently don't just send out poisons. You have to make a little effort for that. In researching what Sigma was, we discovered that it is the technical term for potassium cyanide. The following email strand between James and employee Cassie Rodriguez took place. The initial response from the company stated they would need a usage statement for what James needed the product for. Cassie informed James that they did not have the item in stock, but that they could ship the item overnight. The web order copy was provided and showed that it would be shipped to James's office. So at this point, James Craig may have believed he was going to get this product, but it's going to turn out there are a lot more hoops that he's going to have to jump through. It's not going to just come right away. The order notes state, hopefully this is in stock and I can come pick it up tomorrow, March 9th. So it does sound like then he was writing it on March 8th. That's before she actually went in the hospital again. But from the other reference, I'm thinking it may have been March 9th. It appeared that based on the order, James needed this product right away. So why is he in such a hurry? The all-fired hurry here. So, and I mentioned earlier the question of whether or not he was having some kind of affair or even relationship, because the woman gave an answer, said, yeah, we weren't having any kind of sexual relationship. We had met at this conference. We had spent, a couple of days together. It sounded like they clearly were interested in each other, but it wasn't necessarily any further than that. They met at a conference on February 23rd to 25th. And then on the 27th, by the 27th is what I don't know where I got the 27th. It must have been somewhere in here. Anyway, somewhere in here, I concluded it was on the 27th that he first started writing about buying the potassium cyanide. So 23rd to the 25th, they meet in Las Vegas at this conference. And so you figure he leaves 25th, maybe 26th if you stay overnight, depending on if there was an evening event. And by the 27th, he's writing someone about buying poisons. And that is the case, but there's no real explanation on why such a rush, because the woman says, look, we didn't know each other all that well. We had not yet, we didn't have this full relationship yet. We'd only known each other for about 3 weeks. And by the time this is happening. So, okay. But he seems to be in a hurry. The email then provided a PDF from the company of the restricted item usage statement form. So, okay, new roadblock put up to getting this poison. The form provided the details needed to be filled out by James for his purchase of the specific product of Sigma. James responded by stating he was a surgeon performing a craniofacial reconstruction. James said he is using this chemical to check and see if it will help with the layering of alternative metals. He stated that if successful, this will be published as a paper in the National Institutes of Health. He stated his license number is, and his professional email is, the email he is communicating on to buy the poisons and with is the, and here's the email he used, jimandwaffles@gmail.com. At no time is James using his professional email to your affiant's knowledge to make these purchases after alleging they are for work, which does make you wonder a little bit. So this is a manufacturer of carefully controlled poisons. And obviously you have to be really ultra careful with that because they can be used for bad purposes as well as good. But now an account called Jim and Waffles writes you and says, hey, looking to buy some poison. They're like, okay, sure. That seems very... Cassie then responded stating the delivery was expected for tomorrow and the email is on March 9th. So, and they were excited. They really believed that he was going to be using this in order to do some kind of experiment. So you can tell from some of the things when we get into the emails that were written back and forth, they thought this was great. This was a potential new use for their product. And this seemed like a really good thing to the company. James tells Cassie she has been helpful, and then she tells him that there is a preferred form for the product. Uh-oh, another roadblock to getting this potassium cyanide. Cassie responded and stated that because James was a new user, that the system would take longer to process the order. James responded that he figured it out, referencing the form, and sent it from the hospital. He sent the following response. And there you can see right there his response, but we can read it here because that's hard to read. The response is the restricted usage form, and he stated it would be used for electroplating over medical prosthesis. He signed the form and dated it March 9th, 2023. So Angela is going back into the hospital on this very day. She's going to be there from the 9th through the 14th. And he's writing to the company and attempting to buy this. So she's one of the things I think they will argue is that she gets sick before he ever gets the potassium cyanide. Now, I believe the state is probably going to say, well, that's because he was using arsenic up until then, which he had gotten from Amazon. But with this, I think that a defense here is going to be he didn't even have the product and she's already sick. Therefore, however she was getting that substance may not have come from him. I would guess that's going to be one of the defenses here. Thank you, Idiot Wind. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for gifting 20 Lawyerly memberships. If you're not a member, you can always join by hitting the join button down by Lawyerly, unless you're on your phone, in which case you do need to go in through your computer or through your browser on your phone. But now that Idiot Wind has gifted 20 Lawyerly memberships, you can turn on your ability to receive a gifted membership, and you may be one of the lucky ones YouTube picks out. Our two wonderful mods, Marlon and mamapinks, will put that in the chat, how exactly you do that, so you'll be able to figure it out. So now he's got another form, and he's filled that out. James then responded to message about the delivery delay and stated it was inconvenient. He stated that he will shuffle some things around and then get the delivery Friday, March 10th. So he's arranging, and what we learned later is the office was only open Monday through Thursday. So he had to be in the office specially in order to wait for this package to come on Friday. It was not a normal office day. On March 10th, 2023, James contacted Cassie to ask if she had shipment information. Cassie then sent a response from the supplier that the shipment is expected for Saturday, March 11th, not Friday. James again asked about tracking information. James again contacted Cassie on March 11th and stated it was 7:30 p.m. He waited all day for the shipment in his office. James's office is only open Monday through Thursday. James still had the shipment office on a day off. So he's like, I was willing to get it on a day off. I waited all day. What's the deal? He had communicated with Caitlin that he had a personal package coming to the office and not to open it. It was believed that this package was the personal package. So again, think about this. What if it had actually arrived on Saturday when it was supposed to, or Friday or Saturday? I'm not sure which it was, but whatever day, what if it had arrived then? He's the only one at the office that comes. No one has any idea. Imagine that. But instead, what happened? It didn't come the day it was supposed to. It came later. I will tell you what. Cassie then responded on March 13th, 2023. She provided a FedEx tracking number. Caitlin had told her affiant that the potassium cyanide had been shipped on March 13th, 2023 to the office via FedEx. So it wasn't the day he waited all day. It hadn't even been shipped yet. So it didn't get shipped until the 13th, and he waited all day on the 11th thinking it was coming. The conversations concluded with Cassie telling James he was welcome. Your affiant looked up the Sigma product on Midland Scientific's website and found the following. And they show that the order was for 25 grams of potassium cyanide. Caitlin stated she had seen a container with a label of potassium cyanide on it. James had told her not to open the box, but somebody had gotten to it first, and the box was open with the potassium cyanide inside. James had alleged to Cassie via email that this was for work, but told his employees it was a personal purchase. So it's work, he's going to say, but private. It was not something that he was sharing with anybody or telling anyone else that he was doing. Instead, he was telling everybody at the office, yeah, I'm just for me. So I wonder too, whether there will be some kind of, maybe one of his arguments will be somehow this was experimental and he didn't want to tell anybody in the office that he was doing this experiment. So he was trying to keep them all in the dark so they wouldn't realize he was going to try this thing, hoping for publication. Who knows? Maybe he was jealous of the other partner, and so he was trying to get ahead, didn't want to give away this clever idea he had for making some kind of electroplate for a prosthesis. So that's what he's going to argue. Although I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine he's going to be able to get too far with that. But that was my thinking of how the defense might work. They might say, yeah, he needed to keep this confidential because he was in competition with this partner. Had a lot, they were competitive with each other. They weren't getting along. We'll see when the trial gets started what exactly will be said. KMNOPQ, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for the super chat. All right, so your affiant checked FedEx for the tracking number associated and found the following. The item stated it was delivered on March 13th, which was consistent with what Caitlin had provided detectives. All right, let's see where we are. Yep. All right, so we are now about to hit the conclusion, and then we can talk about this a little bit. All right, throughout this investigation, your affiant has spoken to numerous people who have provided insight into Angela and James Craig's relationship. Not one person has suggested or even seen any source of unaliving ideations from Angela. James had provided those statements to the Department of Human Services employees who, after hearing these statements, felt that James was trying to make a point to have some source of the cover-up story to prevent his incrimination. In other words, he's going around telling everybody, look, she was really bad off and she was depressed and she was wanting to unalive herself. And they're saying, yeah, no one else thought that. Only James Craig thought that. James had made varied statements to various audiences. He told the Department of Human Services that Angela was wanting unaliving, and he had saved her many times but never reported it. James had told fellow employees that his marriage was failing and he was in financial turmoil. But again, how is that going to help him? How does he get in less financial turmoil by unaliving his wife? Like, how does that help? It seems, if anything, that's going to create more trouble because she's built in care for the children, right? Now, then he'll have to pay somebody. I don't get that one thing as a motive, unless maybe we're going to find out more about life insurance. He has also been recently communicating with a woman named about what appears to be a sexually intimate relationship. Now, she said no. She said that is incorrect. And all they say here in the affidavit is appears to be, so they don't know. It appears James was flying this woman into Denver while his wife and the mother of his children was dying in the hospital. Like, yikes, that's a terrible fact to go in front of the jury. That is a brutal fact because it looks so cold, like someone doesn't really care about his wife, right? In totality, and even if he had nothing to do with her death, it looks odd that he's flying someone else in as she's dying. And therefore, it's difficult. I think it will be difficult for the jury to ignore that fact if it's presented to them. Let's see. In totality, this investigation has proven that James has gone to great lengths to try and end his wife's life. On February 27th, he created a new Gmail account, Jim and Waffles, which he only used in dental room number 9 within his practice. This email account found on his cellular phone, his laptop, nor on Angela's phone. So they're saying he went into this room he never went into, room number 9, and he created a brand new Gmail account, which he had never used before and did not use anywhere else. And that's what he used to order this potassium cyanide. While using this account, he researched multiple undetectable poisons and eventually purchased crystalline metalloid arsenic from Amazon.com. After buying this poison, he received an email from somebody about her intention to fly to Denver, Colorado for March 8th through 10th. That might be the woman he was interested in. On March 4th, the arsenic was delivered to James's mailbox at his home residence. On March 4th, James received another email from someone about a trip that was scheduled for March 16 through 20 with a flight plan. I would assume that's the girlfriend. On March 5th, Angela returned home from a trip to Utah. So she's gone to Utah. I believe I recall that she was visiting her sister. Everything's fine. She's healthy. There's nothing apparently wrong with her. And the sister will say there was nothing apparently wrong with her when she was here. This is the 5th. And so now, remember, on the 4th, they're saying he actually received this arsenic. He received it on the 4th. She gets home on the 5th. And on March 6th, Angela was admitted to Parker Adventist Hospital as she complained that her head felt funny, she was dizzy, and her eyes were not focusing. She continued that she did not feel right in her head and that her body was responding slowly. These symptoms were consistent with some of the symptoms from arsenic. These symptoms, per the CDC, were vomiting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, dehydration, altered mental state, or organ failure. Angela was released from the hospital on March 6, 2023, same day. James then ordered oleandrin 1 milligram in the quantity of 3 on March 6, 2023. These items were intercepted by FedEx and were not delivered to James. So what they're saying is, what the prosecution is going to argue, he ordered arsenic, received it 2 days later. 1 day later, she comes home, and then the very next day, she's in the hospital. And then she comes home from that, and he's like, dang, that didn't work. Just wasn't strong enough. And then at that point, orders another completely different poison. So that's what the prosecution's argument is going to be. On March 8th, according to the flight plans from February 27th, somebody came to Denver. James then ordered Sigma, I guess a girlfriend, potassium cyanide from Midland Scientific with the request to have the items overnight. He requested to pick them up on March 9th. Specifically, there were delays in the shipment due to verifying his credentials. James responded while Angela was in the hospital that he could complete the form and that the potassium cyanide was needed for surgery. So he was putting some urgency around it with the company he was ordering from. Yes, it's needed for surgery. I'm about to do this. I'm going to be writing a paper. I have this new idea of a way we could use this, an application. And so I need right away. So pressure, in other words, hurry is what the prosecution is arguing. James showed impatience in the email stream between him and the Midland Scientific employee. James then told his employee that he had a package coming to the office on March 13 and that the package was personal. That package was accidentally opened by an employee named, and blank took the package and reached it knowing James requested it not be opened. So obviously she must have been a little concerned about him finding out that she had opened it. That's what it sounds like. As somebody repackaged the item, she saw it was potassium cyanide. This person never saw this potassium cyanide within the business again. It should have remained in the business if it was truly used for surgery, as James alleged. And I think that's why they said, look, that we never saw it in the trash cans or anywhere. What they're saying is he took that with him somewhere else. So it wasn't really a business purpose. If it had been a business purpose, we would have seen the box in the trash can. He would have kept it at the office because that's where he would need it. That's where he would have used it. On March 14th, Angela was released from the hospital and returned home. On March 15th, Angela returned to the hospital at approximately 11 a.m. This time, Angela was at University Hospital Anschutz. I don't know how you say that. Angela started to suffer from a severe seizure and was intubated. Angela suffered from a lack of oxygen and no pupil reaction and began to have intracranial pressure. This led Angela to the medical intensive care unit where she was on life support and did not regain brain activity. I mean, it's a horrible story. I mean, it's just terrible what happened. And all the children who were affected with this. James was known to make Angela protein shakes regularly and had administered many to her. It was believed he had provided Angela with the poison through these shakes. Per the CDC, the more severe symptoms include high or low blood pressure, loss of consciousness, lung injury, seizures, coma, and death. Now, I would assume that given that they were there right around the time that she was in the hospital, I mean, they were there when she was back at the hospital. I would assume that they went to his house, that they pulled the blender, whatever he would have used to make the smoothie, and that they tested that. Nowhere in here does it say we tested that and it was positive for any of these poisons. So I assume they do not have that piece of physical evidence. And also what that means is they don't have absolute proof as to how this was administered to her. How did this occur? And it does sound like he had made her these shakes before. It was known. It says that he made her these shakes. So in other words, he had been a good and a nice and a kind husband for some period of time. Now, there is something in here that says there was one other time when she got sick and it was a little suspicious, but a while earlier than that. But this had been going on for a while, and at no point had she gotten sick, at least for a long time. So that, I think, will be one of the defenses as well. That there's no evidence that this was given to her in a smoothie. She had received many, many smoothies from him for many years, and she hadn't gotten sick. So something different happened here. Obviously, they have all the orders of the poisons. That's going to change things dramatically in terms of the evidence, but I would expect that to be one of the defense arguments. All right, let's see. James has ordered multiple poisons that were not known to have been located during the searches of his residence or business. James has not attempted to speak with police regarding what occurred with his wife, but has made statements that he had the answers to what happened. And I'm sure they were like, okay, just tell us. That's what we're wanting. James has only repeatedly asked for his phone back, which I can share that to some degree. Based on the totality of the investigation, James has shown the planning and intent to end his wife's life by searching for ways to kill someone undetected, providing her poisons that align with her hospitalized symptoms, and working on starting a new life with the other person. Your affiant finds there is more than enough preliminary evidence sufficient to arrest James Craig with premeditated first-degree murder. And that is exactly what he was charged with. So I think this case is absolutely unbelievable. I really want to know more about what happened. I think you will want that too. I am once again going to ask for your help. One of the things that the court has done that we will be able to view on using the court streaming service, we will be able to view openings, closings, and the jury verdict. But everything in between is only available on the court's WebEx and only available to credentialed, accredited media sources or people with paid contracts and proof of that with a credentialed media source. Accredited, I think is the word they use. So I don't fit in that as a YouTuber. I was told. So I do need to, if any of you know of someone who would be looking for someone who could view the case and maybe do interviews with them or something like that, who is an accredited media source, then I would be interested in doing that. I need to hear from you. But otherwise, we will cover it as best we can with the facts that we're able to glean from people who are able to watch and are able to report on that. And because I just think, how could we not? Basically, how do you not cover this case? This is just crazy. But I do need to hear from you too. If you find this case as interesting as I do, would you please hit the like button? That's the number one way to get this out to more people, and share it with some of your friends who also are interested in cases and things like this. If they follow legal cases, follow crime, if you would send this to somebody, that would be another big way to help. By the way, if you're not subscribed, we would love to have you back for more. Please hit that subscribe button. And may I mention too, we have another members only coming up next week. So the gifts from Idiot Wind are especially appreciated because that is just in time. So we will take just a couple of questions. If you have a question, if you would put question marks at the beginning, I would appreciate it. So Sunset Gazing asks, will Court TV or Law and Crime cover it? Court TV has some articles on it. I believe Law and Crime does as well, but no one is going to be allowed to cover the actual courtroom. It's not going to be broadcast. Normally in Colorado, court cases are broadcast. This one is not going to be broadcast. The court has made a ruling that media are allowed to observe the WebEx. They aren't allowed to make any copies. They aren't allowed to disseminate anything. They aren't allowed to stream. They can simply observe. And that only accredited media sources. So, all right, let's see. Yeah, that's a good point. Nate Eaton does great work on his reporting. He really does. All right, so I'm looking for question marks at the beginning. If you have a question, when is this going to trial? KS asks. So as far as exactly when opening will be, I don't know. They started jury selection yesterday, and there hasn't been very much coming out about it. So I haven't seen a report. How many do they have as of this point? How far have they gotten? Do they have 12 jurors that they've been able to find, plus however many alternates? I don't know the answer to where they are, but I'll be trying to find that out. And then whenever they get through with that process, that's when they should start the opening. And then we'll be able to watch that on the WebEx. That will actually be open through the court's live stream. So that will be interesting. All right. So, well, it looks to me like y'all have no questions. We have thoroughly covered this. Well, I'm so glad. I'm really looking forward to covering this case with y'all, and we'll just see how often and how many videos we can do. And I need to know if y'all are interested. There was, I know it's a new case for us, so I do need to really hear if that is of interest to you, if this was really resonating with you as a case you want to hear about, because it was a little bit lower in the numbers. And I use that as kind of a metric to figure out, okay, what do people want to learn about? What do they want to hear about? What do we want to talk about? Right. So I need to hear from you. That really does help me. Have there been any updates about his defense counsel? And I think there have not been anything. We were told, and I reported this in the last time, that it was a husband-wife team who were appointed as his counsel for this time around. He had another lawyer who resigned on the day of trial. Like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm being asked to do something I can't do, inappropriate. And citing ethics rule of that sort, professionalism rule. And then these two were appointed, and they were these two attorneys he had are husband and wife. And we suddenly got the report that the husband burned down the home and was found, the attorney, I'm talking about the attorney, and was found sitting on the front porch. Law and Crime reported this for sure. Was sitting on the porch waiting for police and fire emergency people to come as the house was burning, which is just crazy. And then that he had been arrested earlier with something to do with a weapons charge. However, none of that was made public. The court at saying that it might have some bearing on whether or not this case could go by. How? What is the connection? again, we don't know. So that won't be opened up, I would assume, until after this trial is over. So we won't know the answer until later in the game. But I have not seen any updates. How long is the trial supposed to last? I think it's supposed to last about 3 weeks total. So I think I'm trying to remember I think it was supposed to end like August 1, something along that line. So about 3 weeks time, which seems to me to be really fast, given that they now have 6 unique charges against him. That's a lot. So, but they were talking about being able to get it done that quickly. I'm seeing lots of question marks here. Okay. Does there seem to be an uptick in LDS murders? We have covered a number of them. Interesting question. Thank you, Veronica. I appreciate your question. All right. Let's see. Looking for question marks at the beginning. Okay. No, I think, advice on studying for the LSAT, says Brandon. Oh, Brandon. Well, I'm glad to hear that you are studying for the LSAT. Well, good luck to you. Just the fact that you are already interested in legal cases and following this says a lot about how excited you would be to go to law school, and I think will stand you in really good stead. As far as advice, I took practice tests and just took test after test. Back then, everything was manual. There was nothing that was online. I'm sure you can get them all online now, but I just took practice test after practice test to try to kind of get my mind working the way that the test was testing. So that would be my best advice to you. And also, good luck. We're all rooting for you. Don't forget to come back and tell us how things went, because we do want to know. All right. Well, I will see you all. I'm probably going to drop a short video this weekend, hopefully, but I will definitely see you all Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget to look for more information about the next members only, which will be next week. See you next week.